Okay, so I'm gonna try to, well, oh, oh, big stretch. I have a testimony, and I'm gonna tell it right now. Because the Lord is about to deliver me from another freaking thing that I couldn't deliver myself from. And I do nothing without God. Like, literally nothing. I couldn't even breathe. Neither could you without Him. The atoms in our bodies would not hold together. That's how important God is. We would not even be here. We would never have been conceived without God. So I just want to make that clear, that I do nothing of my own strength. God is my strength, my courage, and my comfort. Period. At all times. And so I have been living in my car for how long has it been, boo-boo? It's been in this car, I think it's been 2 years. So I was living in another car before this. I was living in a 2-door Honda Civic with my dog. No AC, no heat, no tint on the windows. I mean, it was like living in a freaking fishbowl. And it was miserable. It was miserable. I'm not gonna lie. It was horrible. It was terrible. I was being stalked. I was dealing with all kinds of stuff, and you know, the stalking business had made me totally paranoid. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know what to do about it. Law enforcement wouldn't listen to me at all. You know, I have dealt with major depression in my life. I mean, major depression. I've had multiple unaliving attempts, dealt with enormous amounts of anxiety. I was never into alcohol. I was never really addicted to drugs, but I messed with them a lot. I mean, I've done just about everything except mess with needles. That's never been a thing for me. Like a lot of weed, a lot of hallucinogens, like acid, mushrooms, ecstasy, like party drugs, basically. But let's see what else. I've dealt with enormous amounts of insomnia. Oh my God. Ugh. Like insomnia to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. Terrible. Horrible. Really tremendous low self-worth. Let's see what else. And I mean really low self-worth, like horrible self-esteem. I've dealt with a lot of narcissistic relationships, including the relationship with my mother. I mean, that's really where it started. Absent fathers, a stepfather and my biological father just, you know, didn't ever show up. They sent the checks, but never showed up for us, for me or my brother and sister. Let's see, what else? Poverty. I've dealt with that almost my entire life. Yeah, like my entire life. Let's see. What else? Self-harm. I used to burn my elbows when I was a teenager. I still have scars on them, on both of them. I used to take cigarettes and burn my elbows. I don't know. The cutting never seemed like a good thing to me, so I burned myself instead. I don't know. Well, I know, I do know. Confirmation. I did it because I hated myself. I hated myself. I hated myself. I was very promiscuous when I was a teenager. I got into a lot of sexual relationships with boys that I didn't care about. I didn't care for them. I didn't care about them. They didn't care for me. That kind of thing. Let's see. I lied a lot when I was a kid. I lied a lot, mostly to my mother. I didn't really lie to other people very much, but I lied to my mother a lot. I stole from her. I would steal, she took pain pills, and I would steal her pain pills, and I would take them, and it's tickling me. I was one of my hairs. I would steal money from her, like not a lot, because she never had a lot of money, but I would steal like, you know, $5, $10, sometimes 20, just so I could have some money when I went out, you know, with my friends. And I was never using it to buy drugs. I never did that. Um, I was using the money to like buy a cup of coffee or sometimes buy cigarettes. I lied to my mother about smoking cigarettes. My mother didn't smoke. My mother didn't drink. So that whole situation is, you know, a stronghold that was brought into my life. My mother later, much later in her life, before she died, she started smoking because I smoked. That's fucking horrible. That's horrible. It's a horrible burden. It's a horrible burden. And thank the Lord for releasing me from it. But like, that's awful. Let's see. My mother didn't drink, but my sister and brother are, well, my brother's dead. He was an alcoholic. My sister is still an alcoholic as far as I know. And I pray that she's delivered from that because, you know, and what else do I deal with? What is tickling? Is that a bug? Let's see. I started getting into, because I had been diagnosed with so many like mental health issues, like anxiety disorder. Let's see, I'm listing all the things that Father helped me. Oh, I stole a lot when I was a kid. I never had what I wanted, like never. I didn't have nice clothes. I didn't have nice makeup like a lot of my friends did. And so I stole things from stores, not from people. I didn't do that. That's something I've never done, but I don't steal from people. I've never stolen from people. I don't, you know, I never had the, and these are all things I have not done in a long time, but, I stole from stores because I didn't have those things. We didn't have the money to get them either. So, let's see. I started smoking when I was 15, cigarettes. And yeah, it's a stronghold. All of them are demonic strongholds. I was hit with everything and several kitchen sinks. But approximately, but I've always been a good person. And I always loved the Lord. I didn't know how to trust him. Didn't know how to trust him. I couldn't trust anyone because I had been through so many crappy relationships, starting with my mother, and, you know, both my absent, you know, stepfather and real father, that I was a mess. I mean, these were demonic strongholds that were in my life, because if you look at my life, you know, we didn't have alcohol in the house. We weren't around people that drank. I was around people that drank, like people my age, a lot. And at the same time, I didn't drink. I never really drank. I've never been a drinker. I never liked alcohol. And thank God for delivering me from that. But you know, I didn't have it in my life. So it was a demonic stronghold. All these things were demonic strongholds. I know, I recognize them for what they are. And I've been able to break, with the help of Christ, of course, because I do nothing out of my own strength. I've been able to break them all and pull them all down, all of them, every single one, including like lack of self-worth and like not wanting, like being lazy and like stagnant in my energy in my life. You know, like not caring if I do better, or not caring if I exercise, or, you know, like things like that. You know, there were just so many things, and I fought these things for years, but I didn't know to use God for everything. Like, and I didn't know how to be used by God either. I didn't know how to be God's instrument to, I mean, you name it, I've been through it at one point or another in my life. Like, I've been through it. I never had the eating disorder thing. That's not something I dealt with. Yeah, no, that's not something I dealt with. But prescription medication addiction, you name it. I had everything and then some thrown at me. And like I said, I was always a good person. I always loved God. I didn't know how to trust him. I did not know how to trust him. I had horribly unhealed wounds around my mother and father relationships, aka like mommy and daddy issues. Like, I had them, all of them, and then some. Um, I've been attacked left and right my whole life. And I've only broken these things with the help of other fellow Christians. And I don't mean just any Christian. I mean really people who just are completely down for God, like down to the ground, down for God. And I don't, a lot of these people, I haven't even always like had close relationships with them, but they saved me. They helped me, remind me, and in one way or another, their testimonies saved my life. They brought things to the forefront that I had buried. A lot of buried emotions, a lot of undealt with emotions, mental abuse, emotional abuse, um, verbal abuse. Oh, verbal abuse up one side and down the other. So, but underneath it all, like I said, I'd always been this really, happy, shiny person that just loved the Lord and trusted the Lord, but didn't know how to trust Him completely, didn't know how to trust Him when things got hard, didn't know how to trust Him when I was alone and tired and scared. I didn't know how to fight back with the Word. There were a lot of things that I didn't understand how to do because nobody had ever told me that you can go to the Lord with all of these things. You can go to Him. I remember my mom trying to tell me in many different ways that I could trust the Lord, but she didn't trust the Lord, so I had a horrible example, delivered from divination. I was into reading tarot cards. I had a lot of crystals. Like a lot of crystals. I always loved them. They were beautiful things, I thought. And I didn't realize that I was opening the door to demonic strongholds. I didn't realize that. So there were so many things I didn't understand. And I had bad examples, too many bad examples, and not enough good ones to show me how. Because, as human beings, having an example of somebody who is not just telling you how to do something, but is walking the walk. I never admired people that weren't all that they preached to be. I can't get behind that. And I couldn't stand that inside myself when I would tell somebody else to do something, yet I wasn't practicing it myself. I can't stand hypocrisy. I've never been able to stand it in myself or in others. It's something that I've always sought out like a seek and destroy missile. Like I smell it on people. If somebody's a hypocrite, I smell it on them. And I won't listen to them. And that was a lot of the way that the enemy would my spirit of criticism, because I would criticize other people heavily for things that I was doing and for things they were not doing. And the enemy knew that about me. And, the enemy also knew that I was very highly intuitive. I always have been highly intuitive person. And I guess if I was not a Christian, people would call me, a psychic or a medium or a channel. I'm none of those things. I vehemently renounce all of that. But, you know what I'm saying. Like, I'm a highly intuitive person, and other people recognize that in me. They sense it in me, especially other intuitive people. Of course, it's God's intuition. It's the Holy Spirit in me is what it is. But, the enemy used all these things against me. I had the spirit of offense in me. I would get offended very easily. People would say some dumb shit to me, and I would get offended. But that's a spirit. I don't think I really realized how powerful that stronghold was until even just recently. Confirmation. So, all these things were at play in my life, my whole life. But underneath it all, I was struggling. I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I had been buried. I didn't realize that I was a seed and I had been planted because I didn't see it that way. I felt like I was 6 feet under and I was still walking, talking, and breathing. That's how I felt. There was a night, And I've lost all my family members. That's another thing. I lost 12 people. I think it was actually 13 people in less than 5 years. I didn't know that my father had died until after. And I lost my business. I lost my housing. I lost the man that I loved at the time. And I didn't see it that God had plans for me. I didn't see it that way. Not at all. I remember praying. I just did a video on this last night. I remember praying to the Lord at one point after my, excuse me, after my younger brother had died. And I asked the Lord, you know, I don't think I ever really asked the Lord. I'm sure I have, but, you know, it hasn't been like an ongoing prayer for me to ask the Lord, like, why me? I've always asked him, like, what are you doing? Like, I don't, because the why me thing doesn't really jive with my spirit. It doesn't really make sense. Because I know that God has a plan. God always has a plan. I just want to know, what is it? You know, what is that plan? And so I remember I was walking. I was living in this house in Nepal. I was being gang stalked. Like, I mean, I can't even, if I got into it, you'd think I was just crazy. But this was all really happening in my life. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was off the hook crazy. Not my kind of crazy, though. Like, crazy, crazy. And I remember I was praying to the Lord out loud. I think I was praying out loud. And I was saying to him, you know, like, after my younger brother had died, I was gone. Like, I had lost my best friend Margaret in September, my great aunt, who was very much my best friend, on October 4th, and then my younger brother died December 20th of 2022. And I was all right until my younger brother died. I lost it. I lost it for a while. I did. That on top with, combined with all the stalking, and the man that I loved at the time I found out he was an addict, and I didn't know. How did I not know that? You know, like, all kinds of things, confirmation, were going on in my life that I felt completely out of control. I was smoking marijuana, like, way too much, and it was a crutch for me. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't something I was doing really because I wanted to. I was doing it to cope with all of the crap in my life. And I had a dog, but that I still have, you know. Her name's Bella. And I was losing everything. I remember praying to the Lord and saying, what, you know, WTF, dude? Like, what's the plan? I know you have a plan, but, like, what is it? What are you doing in my life? Like, why did you let all this happen? And I heard, and I didn't hear it outside of my head, but I heard it in my mind. The Lord said, and I had never heard the Lord's voice like this. It sounded like an angelic voice. I don't know how else to describe it. I actually think that I was speaking with one of God's archangels, one of God's holy angels, not God himself. And I mean, I get that now. It's taken a while to get there, and a lot of questioning, a lot of praying, a lot of reading God's word. But this angelic male voice said to me, I didn't want you to have any vulnerabilities. And God's still showing me. I'm still being shown what that means exactly. However, there's so many answers to that, like what that means. There's so many answers to it that I really can't, like, there's not any one answer. And so, and I didn't know what that meant at all at the time. I mean, I had some visions. God gave me some visions of it, but I didn't, like, have any, like, concrete answers like what I have now. I didn't have any of those yet. And so fast forward, like, another, I think it was like 6 or 7 months, Bella and I spent in the Honda Civic with no AC, no heat, no, you know, it was just awful. The car was falling apart, and I was very grateful to have it, but, like, and everybody had abandoned me. Everybody. I had abandonment issues. Like, I didn't even know where to begin with them. Everything and everyone in my life had left me, and if they hadn't left me, they had died. Which is a totally different kind of abandonment. I mean, it's not abandonment, but, like, it feels the same, only worse, because you can never, like, talk to those people again. You know, they're gone. They're gone. My mother died alone in a sleeping bag under some bushes outside of a homeless shelter. So you can imagine that, you know, me being homeless or houseless, like, triggered me, like, unbelievably. I mean, really bad. And my brother died alone in a hospital with a pair of flip-flops and a pair of shorts and his phone, and that was it. Because my sister wouldn't go hold his hand while he died. So, you know, and then later, you know, after all that happened, I was abandoned by the people that were still alive. Like, nobody cared about me. Nobody, like, literally, I could have just disappeared off the face of the earth and nobody would have even known. Nobody would have cared. Nobody would have said anything. I don't think I would have even, you know, like, cared very much, is the truth. I was so deeply depressed. So alone. God, that, like, makes me want to cry just thinking about it. I didn't see my worth at all. People treated me like trash for so many years of my life. And then everybody was dead. And the people that were alive, they treated me worse than ever. And they lied to me and stole from me. And lied about me behind my back and all this shit. Like, all this stuff happened. All this stuff they did. And I didn't even know why they were doing this. Like, I couldn't understand it. At the time, I didn't understand why. But I knew that it was demonic. I knew that there was some serious shit going on in my life. And I knew I had to fight. And so then, in October of, and I just kept carrying on. I felt like I was the Walking Dead. I felt like a zombie. People were attacking me in my car. Like, there was at one point, Bella and I were up on the mountain in my hometown in Santa Barbara, California, because I had retreated to, you know, the solace of the mountains because I didn't know where else to go to find safety or get away from, like, the drugs and the alcohol of the city, you know. And there was one point where 3 people approached my car and they wanted to do really horrible things to me. I could feel it. I could feel it off of them. And I fought that, but, you know, it was so weird. It was like I was just being treated like trash, and I couldn't understand it because I knew I wasn't trash. I knew that, but I couldn't fight anymore. I couldn't fight anymore. I didn't have it in me. So one night on October, I think it was the 17th of 2023, excuse me. I was driving up the mountains in our little 2-door Honda Civic, and I came upon an accident. A man was in a truck accident. Confirmation. A man had rolled his truck on the highway, very dangerous highway in Santa Barbara County. It's called the 154 highway. Very dangerous. And a lot of people get in a lot of accidents on that road. And he had rolled his truck, and I saw a little fire. Well, it looked little from my perspective where I was in the car, but he had rolled his truck, and he was burning in his truck. And Bella had been my companion through all of this. All of it. She never left my side, even when I tried to drop her off at the shelter. I told you I was a mess. I was out of my mind. I would never do that now, of course, but I did it. I did it because I didn't know if I could ever love anything again, and I knew that she needed my love, and I couldn't give it to her. But this little dog hung in there with me. God sent me a dog. It saved my life. But I came up on this accident that night. It was a cold, dark November night, and I looked at Bella. She looked at me, and I said, I gotta go. And I jumped out of my car, and I ran up and I helped this man. And I knew in that time, I knew he had children. I knew he had a woman that loved him. I knew he had family. I knew that, somehow I knew that if I didn't help him, he was gonna die. And, that they had lost. I knew that somehow I knew, and this was all like done in a split second. I'm not kidding. I didn't have time to think about it at all. Not any time to think about it at all. So I didn't have time to like sit there and think, you know, does this guy have a family? No. It was like God just like flashed all this knowledge down on me, and I was just like, wow. And I jumped out of my car. One of the reasons I jumped out of my car is because God told me if you don't help him, he's gonna die. And they've lost other family members. So I'm like, you know, okay. So, I mean, you know, I didn't even have time to say, okay. I just jumped out of my car and I ran over to this man's accident, and there were 3 men trying to pull him out of the truck, and I couldn't see, but like this was my intuitive x-ray vision. I could see that his legs were crossed underneath the seat, and his shoes had like gotten stuck underneath the seat. I don't know how exactly, but that's what happened. And I could see all of this in a flash. I could see everything. I could see it all. And I ran up to the truck, and I was grabbing handfuls, because it had just rained, and I had grabbed handfuls of wet dirt, you know, because dirt and wet dirt's great for smothering a fire. And I was grabbing it, like, you know, digging it out of the ground with my bare hands, and it was so cold that night. And I did that for, you know, maybe a couple seconds, and I realized that what I was doing was absolutely futile, completely futile. Because I looked around. Baby, stop, please. I went around the corner of his truck, and I could see that there was fluid strewn all across the highway, and that this fire was a lot more powerful than I saw from the front end of the car. The undercarriage was facing the road, but I couldn't, you know, I had to look around the truck. I didn't see all that, so I ran back to my car. Confirmation, I don't know what that's confirmation for, but I ran to the car, back to my car, because I had bought a case of water from 7-Eleven, not like the little small bottles, like the little ones, but like the medium-sized ones, not large, but like they were just bigger than the little size. And I was hurling them across the highway like footballs, and I was screaming at the guys, because all these guys had full hoodie sweatshirts and hats and jeans and tennis shoes. All I had was like a t-shirt. It wasn't a tank top, but it was a t-shirt, like a thin t-shirt, some khaki pants, and a pair of flip-flops on. That's what I was wearing that night. And I remember screaming at them to like douse themselves with the water, because they could have, you know, gotten closer to the fire with their thick sweatshirts doused with water, but I couldn't. Confirmation again. But they couldn't hear me. It was this accident scene was so chaotic. And this truck was, I mean, it wasn't like bonfire hot, it was incinerator hot. How hot this car fire was. And the smoke from it was thick, and you couldn't breathe. Like, it wasn't like smoke from a fire, like a wood fire. It was, I mean, it just choked you immediately. And the heat and the smoke, and this guy was screaming. The fire spread so fast. I mean, it was, you looked away for a second, you looked back, it was worse. I'm not exaggerating. I think you know, in the time that I ran to my car and ran back, the entire cab of his truck was engulfed. He was screaming. He was burning to death in his truck. So these 3 guys had backed off from the truck, because it was too hot. It was so hot. Some of them sustained burns. I had you know, I had small burns on me, but more than that, I got, you know, from the whole thing, I got burned from just being that close to this fire. It was so hot. It was really hot. And I was pink all over. In the picture on the news, that they put in the newspaper of me, you can see how like pink my skin is. I look like I have like a low grade like sunburn, and that's what it felt like. But this man was screaming, and these guys had backed off, and I was screaming at everybody. There were like probably 100 people on scene at the accident. No emergency crew though, no paramedics, no cops, nothing. but there were about 100 people on scene, and they were just, most of them were just standing there, either filming with their phones or watching. It was one of the strangest things I've ever experienced. There was a man at the scene. He actually organized the GoFundMe account for me. His name is Randall Jackson, and his wife Liz. And I remember running up to him and shaking him, like taking him by the arms and shaking him and screaming like this close to his face. And he just stared like right through me. It was so weird. I've seen people freeze like that, but I don't think I've ever seen that many people freeze like that. It was like being amongst a bunch of zombies is what it was like. And it was just these 3 men and me trying to help this guy. But as this man was burning to death in his truck, these 3 men, I mean, it was so hot. I don't blame them for what they did at all. I had no judgment at all. But they turned their backs on him as he was screaming. He was burning in his truck, and he was screaming like bloody murder, screaming. I'm sure it hurt really badly. Like, I can't even, I don't think I've ever been through pain like that, except maybe when I had my eardrums ruptured several times. But like, that's some pain this man went through. And that was awful. The worst part about it was when he stopped screaming, because I've had multiple near-death experiences, and I know that moment when you want to stop fighting, you want to give up, and you want to just die and let it stop. The pain, the fear, the confusion, the life flashing before your eyes thing, all of it. You just want it to stop and just, get it over with already. And just in the moment of, oh my God, this guy's gonna die, I wouldn't turn my back on him. And I know it sounds gruesome, and it was, but I wouldn't turn my back on him. I watched him. I don't remember what I was saying, but I was talking the whole time. I know I was screaming at people to help, confirmation. And I was screaming bloody murder, fucking help. I mean, I'm sure I was cursing like a drunken sailor that night. And I was just I couldn't understand how like nobody was doing anything. It was just a really weird, like surreal experience. And then just when I saw him still kind of struggling in the truck, but just when I thought it was, about to be over, he pushes himself out of the truck, and I'm like, and I run up, he hits the pavement, and I run up, and I grab him underneath the armpits and drag him back. I couldn't really drag him back, but I kept slipping on my flip-flops, landed on my ass a couple times, and I was screaming at these guys who had been helping, help me. I screamed at him and pulled him back under the arms, and they helped me pull him back. And I knew from how cold that night was, and the smoke and everything he had gone through, I grabbed some of the water bottles that I had hurled across the highway, and I could see the bones in his toes. It was like something out of a movie. It was very surreal, but I knew that the next thing this man was going to face that would kill him was shock. I knew it. And I opened a bottle of water, and I poured out, I poured it over his feet, and I've never seen anyone look at me with that much gratitude in their face. Never. He looked at me like I was an angel. I mean, he looked at me like I could solve all his problems. And it was incredible. I'd never seen a look like that on anyone's face. Never. And I put him out. Literally, he was on fire, and I poured water on his feet and his legs. He ended up losing a leg from this accident. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But I got on top of him, and he had a laceration on his head. I couldn't see where it was, but he was bleeding all over me. And I held both of his hands, and I told him, you did it, you're going home, you're gonna see your kids. I didn't even actually know that he had kids, but I knew. And he said, call Clarissa. And I said, was anybody else in the car with you? Was anybody else in the car? He said no, 3 times, confirmation. And then he looked at me for a while. He looked at me like I was something else, like I wasn't human. And then he started to pass out, and it took the paramedics about 25 minutes to get to us. A CHP officer got there before the paramedics and tried to push me off of him, and I literally pushed this cop back. I mean, I probably could have gotten arrested for assault, but this cop could see what I was doing, and the only reason I pushed this police officer back was because I had it, like I had that, and I didn't want to break that connection between me and this man, because I just had a feeling that God was using me to keep this man alive. And so, like, I wasn't gonna let go, you know, just like I didn't turn my back when he was burning in his truck. And so all this goes on. I got really sick from inhaling the smoke. And the man and woman, Liz and Randall Jackson, from the scene of the accident, took my car and my dog that night because I had to go to the hospital. I had inhaled a lot of smoke. I couldn't breathe. And I got her back the next day, and I remember I felt sorry for myself. I felt like, you know, because not only were we like in this horrible situation of like living in this, you know, car that was falling apart and didn't work properly to begin with and everything else, but I had like no money. And then on top of that, I'm really sick from helping in this accident and everything else. And I remember feeling really down on myself, like, why did you sacrifice, you know, potentially your life and your health, obviously, because I was really sick, for this person that you don't even know, and that, you know, nobody cares about you. Still, nobody cares about you. And I felt like shit for helping, you know, but I knew it was the right thing to do, but still, like, I felt like crap. I couldn't see that what I had done was really heroic, you know, I didn't see it that way. And I got to the point where after about a week, I was so sick. I mean, I was so sick. I couldn't. Why are they having a fire? That I couldn't do anymore. I couldn't drive anymore. I couldn't do anything. I remember I parked under this one grove of trees in, you know, up on the mountains in Santa Barbara, California, and I just sat there for like 2 or 3 days. I was a mess. I mean, I was a mess. I was hurt. I was sick. You know, I felt like nobody cared, etc., etc. And I remember I called, Randall Jackson, and I begged him to put me up in a Motel 6 for a night, because I literally couldn't keep going. I was so sick. And he did. And he had started a GoFundMe account for me. And I didn't know all of this was going on. But, like, Subaru was arranging for a new car for me. I mean, not new, but, like, you know, they were rebuilding. They were doing this, like, and this GoFundMe, like, they had put this in the Santa Barbara Independent, and which, like, gave it a lot of publicity. So my GoFundMe account just, like, shot up, like, almost overnight. And, you know, like, within, like, 2 weeks, I had, like, almost close to $30,000 in this GoFundMe account. And Subaru approached me while I was staying in the Motel 6 and gave me a car, not a new car, but they rebuilt the engine and gave me this whole car, like, amazing. And they put it in the newspaper, they put it on the TV and everything, and I was still deeply struggling with my self-worth and things like that. But it was the beginning of the end of the shitty part of my life. I learned how to trust the Lord. I went on a 30-day road trip with Bella. We went all over the place. We went through Utah, Nevada, Arizona, California, and Oregon. And I realized during that time that, like, I was a very ungrateful person, like, really ungrateful. I mean, I was grateful, but not. And I was being very critical still. I had very much the spirit of criticism on me. And I was just a mess. But I got back to Santa Barbara because I went back to Santa Barbara, California, because frankly I didn't know where else to go. I had no friends, I had no family, and I wasn't, strong enough at that time, and I wasn't confident enough to just leave, to be on my own and do my own thing. Even though I knew there wasn't anything in Santa Barbara for us, I didn't have the balls to leave yet and stay away. And so I went back, and I remember I think in the month of because I was gone for I was gone all of December, and like in mid-January, I remember, I think it was early February, because it was after my mom and brother's birthday, because my mom's birthday is on February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, and then my brother was born on the 4th, so they, back-to-back birthdays. And it was coming up on my birthday, on March 28th, so I was like, ugh. And so I remember I had this car, and I had a little bit of the money left over from the GoFundMe account. Not much, but I had, a couple thousand left over from the road trip that Bella and I had been on, because we went on like a 30-day road trip. And I had, I was brokenhearted, and I knew it. Still, I was brokenhearted. Excuse me. Pardon me. Pardon me. Excuse me. And so I just felt useless, I felt like I had done all this, I'd been through this, really traumatic, but also amazingly harrowing experience of, this car accident with this man. And, I had gone to the DMV to register this car, and I was trying to explain to this lady why, you get some random number, like now serving B11 at Windows 7 or whatever it is. And, I was trying to explain to this lady why I had two cars, why I was trying to register this other car and blah, blah, blah. It was way overcomplicating the story for her. And so I just pulled out the news story, the Santa Barbara Independent article, and showed it to her. And she said, "That's you?" And I said, "Yeah, that's me and my dog." And I didn't know why she was saying this. And she said, "That was my cousin you saved." She said that earlier that day that he got in the accident, they had just had a memorial for another family member, and she showed me this plaque, like a memorial plaque, of this very good-looking young man, Hispanic young man. So God told me the correct information. He did in fact have kids. He did in fact have a woman who loved him. He did in fact have a big family. And they had in fact lost other family members. So I had confirmation of that. The Lord showed me, like literally brought me to another person that could tell me about it. And God is so strange, but like really awesome. I love it. I love the strangeness of the Lord. It's so weird. He's totally trippy. And I'd gone through all of this, and people had been telling me left and right that I'm a hero, and on and on and on. And yet I didn't feel like it. I felt like crap. I still didn't see my own self-worth. I still didn't see what God's plan for me was. I didn't know what I was doing. I had all this money. I mean, I had all this money, but what had I done with it, I'd spent it on a lot of food and, campsites and a lot of firewood, because it was really cold camping in the middle of December, and we were driving through blizzards. I didn't really know that at the time, but, we were driving through blizzards. And I mean, everywhere we went, there were like 2 or 3 feet of snow. So, I felt like empty all over again, and almost worse than I had felt to begin with. But I thought, you know what? That's just not true. That's a lie, and I'm not going to believe that. And I remember one day, it was a February morning, and the sun was out, and it was really beautiful. I saw pictures of it on my phone. But I went on a walk with my dog, and I found this pond on this trail, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and like up in the mountains of Santa Barbara, California. And I had a garnet necklace on at the time, and I had bought these garnet necklaces off of online. I think I found them on Facebook Marketplace or something, for very cheap, like $5 to $7. They're very cheap, beautiful garnet. And the reason I bought them was because my mother had had a strand of garnet stones, a garnet stone necklace and these garnet earrings, but they were stolen from her, and they were meant to go to me, like as a, like you pass things on to your daughters. And, I didn't get them because they were stolen from her, and I just felt like everything had been stolen, all kinds of stuff. My baby book, from, I don't even want to get into how I know that happened, but, or who did it. I forgive them, for they did not know what they were doing. Anyhow, but I had this garnet necklace, and so I built this cairn. I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I'd only, I'd seen people like stack rocks on top of one another, but I'm sure I kind of looked like a lunatic. Like I was dragging this like really heavy stones next to this pond of water, and it was a very cold February morning, but sun was shining. It's really beautiful. And I took these stones and I built this, kind of like tower of stones, and I took off my garnet necklace and I placed it around the top stone of this, this cairn that I had built. And I was building, I didn't really think about it before I did it. It was all just on instinct, but intuition. But I was building an altar to my grief. And I remember sitting down there and praying and meditating and saying goodbye to my mother and to my brother and to everybody else who had died, my great aunt and my friend Margaret and my friend Holden and my Lakota Sioux father, Paz Cipuentes, and a lot of other people too. And I walked away. And that was really the beginning of the end of the shitty part of my life. Like the lack of self-worth, the beating myself up, smoking pot. I didn't really drink. I wasn't doing other drugs at the time, but like dealing with shitty relationships. All of it, the narcissistic abuse. Everything that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it was over. I walked away from it. I didn't know that at the time, but this was like an altar that I built to all my grief. All of it. And it was symbolic to like drag these stones, because I felt like I had been carrying these same stones, not literally, but figuratively, around my neck my whole life. I'm not kidding. Like I felt like I had several balls and chains around my neck the whole time, and so it was symbolic of like dragging these really heavy stones and lifting them up and placing them on top of each other, and then putting my necklace, because garnets represent grief, and like grounding too. There's a lot of things that they represent, the stone of a garnet, but it was very symbolic for me. So then I remember I walked away, and my life has not been the same. I submitted myself to God. I had always known the Lord. I had given my life to Christ when I was very, very young. And nothing could put me back together. No amount of money, not even my dog, although she held me together, but she couldn't put me back together. She held me together with like the pieces that I had left of me. But I remember just saying to the Lord, like, I have nothing left. Like, I have nothing and no one left. There's just me, my dog. We've got a car to live in, and I know you. And I fucking give up, Lord. I give up, and I give it to you. I give it all up. All of everything that I've been carrying my entire life, and I give it to you, Father. And I need you to heal my broken heart. I need you to do this, because I'm never gonna feel alive again, ever. And that's all I asked him for, was to heal my broken heart. And over time, I learned to love myself. I learned to start exercising regularly. I learned to start praying regularly. He taught me to read his word regularly. He taught me to meditate on his word regularly. He delivered me from every unclean spirit that had ever attached itself to me. And ones I didn't even know about, delivered me from all of it. Clean, free and clear. I was able to put down the crappy relationships. I was able to put down the, beating myself up. I was able to put it all down. And even further than that, I was able to dig out the spirit of criticism, the spirit of offense. And I literally delivered myself from so many demons. I know how that sounds, like you were possessed. No, I wasn't possessed. But I had so many attachments that I felt like I had been wearing lead boots my entire life. Like a lead boots, lead helmet, you know, I mean, lead gloves. I just felt like lead. I felt so heavy. And when I laid all these things down over time, it took some time, but, and I laid these things down and the Lord kept showing me and I kept feeling like super high. Like as though I was on something, but I wasn't on anything. Like, not at all. I hadn't used any drugs at all. And like I was still smoking tobacco, but I had not used any drugs at all. I was able to put down prescription medication that had plagued me for decades. I was taking clonazepam, benzodiazepines. And anybody who's ever tried to get off those things knows what those withdrawals are like. I was so terrified of the withdrawals, I didn't even want to try. I was able to put down the prescription medication. I was able to stop seeing my psychiatrist because I simply didn't need it anymore. They couldn't help me anyway, but you know, I started going to the Lord for all these things, and I realized really quickly that, oh, you're all I ever needed. And you can imagine that part of me felt kind of stupid, but like more than that, more than ever, I just was so glad to have found the Lord. I was just so glad. I was so excited. I felt joy and peace in my life. I wasn't just happy, I was joyful. Like kind of ridiculous happy. Like the kind of happy that annoys the heck out of other people when they're unhappy. But like I was encouraging to other people. I didn't want to curse them with my mouth or say, oh, you're stupid, or, you know, whatever. I didn't want to say that about myself, and I didn't want to say that about other people. And the Lord has continuously delivered me from so many things that I never thought I would be freed of. There were things that I didn't even know I was enslaved to until the Lord delivered me from them. Yeah. I mean, you know, I would have argued until I was blue in the face to keep all my crystals, that they're beautiful stones from God, and I would have argued all of that until I realized that that's a demonic stronghold. That's leaving a spiritual, legal foothold in my life for the enemy to come right on in and fuck all kinds of shit up, excuse my language, but like really though, for real. So, and I did all of this by myself with the Lord. Nobody helped me. Nobody helped me. There was no family, there were no friends, there were no church members. Nobody helped me. No one. I did this all by myself with the Lord. Literally. I mean, the Lord did it all through me. But there was no help. There was never any help. There were people that assisted with certain things along the way, but they didn't help me in my faith. I don't think anybody was praying for me. No one was praying for me. 52 on the timer. And nobody was praying for me. Not for me personally. And, you know, the Lord has literally transformed me. I'm a joyful, peaceful, happy, confident, strong person. All by the grace of God. I do nothing on my own power. Nothing. I'm out here living in my car still. We're in Colorado. I mean, at this point, this time we went through California, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada. Am I missing one of them? Yeah, I think that's all of them. I think 6 states. And I have no idea where I'm going. No clue. Don't really have much money right now. You know, like last night, there were kids partying down the hill until after 4 in the morning, hooting and hollering, drinking a lot of alcohol, you could tell. And yet, like, I just rolled over and I was just at peace. And I just called peace down upon the entire situation. Normally, that would drive me nuts. But I fast regularly. I pray every day, multiple times a day. I read my word a lot. Not as much as I'd like to, but like a lot. And the Lord is constantly making correlations and connections in my mind. I've dedicated my mind, my heart, my body, my spirit to the Lord, period, end of story. I've gotten deliverance from certain things through the prayers of others, although they weren't praying for me personally. It was because I was watching their YouTube videos, and they stand in their authority, and they stand in the Lord and the power of His might. And through that, I was able to gain deliverance from certain things, or at least like see it for what it was and call it down, and stand in my own authority and dominion over those things on my own, and make sure they stay gone. But I've literally done all this on my own while houseless, homeless, and living on a very meager amount of money, with a dog in a car, with no friends, no family. Yeah. I healed myself from fibromyalgia. I healed myself from, I was getting terrible ovarian cysts. Like almost every month I've had surgery. Like I didn't have my periods anymore. I mean, there was all kinds of things going on in my life. And God healed me from all of it. And all I had to do was cooperate. That's all. I've been able to heal my dog. I've been able to heal other people just by touching them. And it's not me. It's not me. God does it all. But like, God has used me as an enormous instrument of His will here on earth, of His grace and majesty and His kingdom here on earth. And I don't know who this video is for. And I'm like skimming over a lot of things that took me years to get over. It took me years to even recognize them for what they were. And I fought them in every other way. I tried to fight them with prescription medication. I tried to fight it with meditation outside of God. I tried to fight it by doing yoga, which is like, oh God. I tried to fight it with therapy and counselors and support groups and all kinds of, I mean, I've even been, the facilitator of support groups. And, although I was strong in all of that, nothing is like the power of God. Nothing. Nothing. And I don't mean in some religious way. I mean having a personal relationship with your Lord and Savior. So I don't know who this video is for. I don't know who's going to watch this. I don't know if you made it this far. You're here for a reason. And if you can't believe yourself right now, believe me when I tell you that everything's for a reason. Everything. Every little thing. Everything. Even the things that seem completely meaningless. There's a reason for it. I don't claim to know all the reasons, because some of them are so big that they're beyond the scope of human understanding. But God sees it all. And my life has been for a huge reason. The Lord has been storing up all this strength and all of His grace and all of His confidence in me to do a mighty work for Him, to further His kingdom here on earth, to help others. I know it. I know it's true. And I just want to submit to you that everything in your life has been for a reason too. You are not meaningless. Your life is not meaningless. Your suffering is not meaningless. Your triumphs are not meaningless. God has seen every tear that you've cried. Every moment alone that you just thought you'd rather be dead. God saw all of that, and He's going to turn it all around, because God works all things together for the good of those who love Him. And maybe you don't know how to love Him right now, because you probably don't know how to love yourself. And I know how that is. I do, and I feel for you. You're not alone. God will work it all together for good if you trust Him. Just trust Him. And I know how hard that is too, because when you never had anybody in your whole fucking life that you could trust, not a mom, not a dad, not a friend, not a sister, not a brother, no one, not even your teachers, no one you could trust. It's really hard. It's really hard. But God is faithful. He will never lie to you. He will never talk behind your back. He will never backstab you. He will never use, you tell some people your secrets and they turn around and use it against you. He will never do that to you. Never. He will never use you in all the ways that you've been used so many times before. He will never take advantage of you. He will never trick you. He will never lie to you. Never. He will never do anything that is not for your greatest good. Never. And I know how hard it is in the moment to understand how in the fuck can this be for my greatest good. Well, I don't know, but God does. And if you just try to trust him, he will bring you the rest of the way. If you just try, he will show you. If anybody asks me why I love the Lord, it's because of his faithfulness. He's not a human. It's not like that. He's not a human that he will ever lie or cheat or steal from us. Never. And he works all those things together for the good. I mean, he tells us in his word, he tells us, for I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. The peace that Christ brings to us is literally beyond all human understanding. It doesn't make sense. People will look at you in your life and they're like, how are you peaceful? Are you a lunatic? Like, no, I have Christ. He gives love that casts out all of your fears. All of them. All of them. And you can't even explain how you're so happy or peaceful or joyful or or fearless. Because your life looks like a mess. But that's because they're looking with the eyes of the world, not the eyes of faith. For we walk by faith, not by sight. He who is in you and in me is greater than he who is in the world. He can deliver you from all of your narcissistic abuse. He can turn it all around. All of your abuse to yourself, like my self-abuse was almost worse than what other people did to me. I was my own worst enemy. No one could destroy me the way I could destroy myself. And if you're tired of being used by the enemy, by these entities that are not human and they're not angelic either, they just want to use and abuse us and tell us how crappy we are, and then use us even more, and then tell us how crappy we are while they're using us. It's horrible. It's horrible. They're horrible creatures. They want nothing good for any one of us. I don't care who you are. I don't care what promises the enemy has made to you. He is not anything but a liar, a thief, a killer, and a destroyer. He is the enemy of all life. And I don't care what promises he's made. He is a promise breaker. When he speaks, when the enemy speaks, he lies. He speaks from his own resources because he is the father of lies. It's horrible. They want nothing but to spitefully use you. And these things, these entities, they are not human. They use humans all the time. And they're happy to use you. They're happy. I mean, I've met a lot of tarot card readers over the last, before, when I was listening to tarot. I don't anymore, but a lot of them are God's true prophets and seers, and yet they are so blinded by divination that they can't see themselves for what they really are, because these things won't let them. These entities are, this is not a joke. This whole world is ruled by the fallen angels. That's not a joke at all. I'm not kidding when I say that. This whole world is built up on witchcraft. I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. And when you start asking the Lord to show you the truth, because Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. I wish there were many ways to God. I wish there were many ways. Unfortunately, well, fortunately and unfortunately, there's only one way. Unfortunately for all the people who think there are other ways, and fortunately for those who do find the one way to God. Nobody comes to the Father but by Christ. Period. Yeshua HaMashiach, this man loved us so much that he laid down his own life. He went to hell and fought for us in hell. He has freed us from the law of sin and death. And whoever is free, who is set free by Christ, is free indeed. It's all true. Everything. It's all true. All that good stuff. It's all true. I ask that the Lord convict your heart. Convict your heart and show you that you need Him more than you've ever needed anything, more than you need the air that you breathe. You need Christ in your life. We all do. I don't care where you come from or what your ethnic background is or even what your religious background is. You need Christ in your life. That's just the truth. Simple, plain, easy. I just want to speak blessings over your life. Speak life over you. Just speak life over you. Because I bet it's been a long time since anybody's ever done that, if ever. A lot of people never have anyone praying for them. I was blessed enough to be shown Christ at a very young age, and so I knew what to go back to. And maybe you were shown Christ too, but you just forgot. That's okay. Christ doesn't turn away from us. We turn away from Him. That's how God works. So, this is a part of my testimony. There's a lot more. A lot more. And I've been through it all. I've been through it all. And I just ask that the Lord show you that. Just shine light on the truth. Shine light on the shadows in your life. And I just speak life and blessings over you. Life and blessings. Because maybe nobody else has ever done that for you. But the Lord shows me love that casts out all fear. And so I can do that. Even though I'm living in a car. Even though all I have is my dog. And, you know, I don't even know. I think my bank account's overdrawn right now. But like all of that aside, I am rich in the Lord. I am rich in the Lord. I am abundant in the Lord. And I have so many blessings to speak over people. I have so much love to give. And so it doesn't matter what's in my bank account. I don't care. Because really, I'm like the richest, most wealthiest, most powerful woman on the planet. Because I love the Lord with all my heart, all my mind, and all my strength. Period. And no one can ever take that from me. God pulled me out of the gutter when I had basically laid down and given up. And I didn't see any point in keep going. But I submitted myself to the Lord. I said, Lord, you know what? If all this is true, and you're the only one who can put me back together, do it. I believe you. I want to try. And He did it. Because I tried. Because I believed. God delights in our faith. And all you need is a mustard seed of faith to move mountains. So try. Because the Lord will meet you more than halfway. When He loves you more than you can possibly imagine. Do you know anybody that would die for you? That you never even met them? Me neither. My mother might have died for me, but I was her child, you know, and it's a very different situation. Christ loves you more than you can possibly fathom. More than even I understand at times. So if you've tried everything else and nothing else worked, what do you have to lose? Probably not much. And you have everything to gain, everything. Belle, sweetie, thank you. You're just the prettiest thing I've ever seen. I love you so much. You are the best thing ever in the whole wide world. I love you so much. She's so patient. She's the sweetest dog ever. I love her so much. Where is she? There she is. There she is. That's my noodle. She's my yummy duck noodle. Love her so much. God gave her to me. And I'm so grateful that He did. And I give her back to Him with all of everything that I've got. And I trust Him every day. And you can try. You can try. Stop asking yourself what you have to lose, because I think you've probably, if you're watching this video, you've lost just about everything except your life at this point. So, what do you have to gain? I hope this video finds you blessed. I speak love, blessings, and compassion over your entire life. And I insist that peace be with you. For wherever there is peace, there is the Spirit of God.